What's up, everybody? I am Mark Monroe, accompanied by my wonderful co-hosts and panel. Give it up to the gentlemen of the squares. We got Tunde in the building, we got Prentice, we got Vic, and we got D'Angelo. Unfortunately, Uncle Charles couldn't join us today, but he's with us in spirit. But look, we're gonna keep it fiery and spicy just for you, Uncle Charles. All right, so guys, we got a pretty loaded subject to talk about today. You guys, a lot of conversations that we have in our group chats, like literally sometimes get, they can be regular, sometimes they can get a little spicy, and then sometimes they can just get in fuego. So want to know, like, what, like, for you that are watching at home or wherever you're listening to the show, definitely write down in the comments down below, where do we get to? Of course, we always keep it respectful because we're brothers amongst anything, but it's a very interesting topic. And so today's topic is all about stock markets and tech. So guys, here's how it started. So I've been a big proponent of this this drink beverage company called Poppy. And for those that, not an endorsement, by the way, but I do like the drink. I guess it is a somewhat endorsement, but my school did not pay me to. But anyways, interesting enough, they recently got acquired for $2 billion by PepsiCo. Now, they're not tech. There's nothing technical about them, but it did kind of like spur me to ask the questions like, where are the black tech companies as it pertains to acquisitions? Where are they at? Like, they're not existent. And then it really made me think about, like, also looking at publicly traded companies where, black CEOs, like the representation, or black founders that take their companies public, which, I mean, nobody really takes a company public anymore. We're going to get into all of that. And then, of course, we're going to talk about, like, of course, stock market, what we saw, the stories that we heard, things that we liked, things that we didn't like. So, guys, we got a pretty loaded show to get into. So y'all ready for this?
Let's get it.
All right. First things first, disclaimer. This is not financial advice. Anything that we discuss about it should not be taken as such. It is our thoughts and our thoughts alone, and they do not reflect either the companies that we work for or the companies in which that we represent. So I think I put that out as a blanket statement for all the gentlemen here in the room.
We appreciate
you. Look, listen, because I know how people be getting. And then on top of that, like, also, these are our thoughts. So essentially, you may disagree with us, and that's okay. You can respectfully disagree. But again, it's still our opinions, our thoughts, and everything else. And if you feel like you have differences of opinion, feel free to start your own podcast and also discuss those things. So, yeah. All right, guys. So where should we start? Should we start with stock market, or should we start with, like, tech?
I mean, we should probably go with the market first, right? Start big, then get right into it.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
All right, so start with so we're gonna start with stock market first.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
let's go. All right, bet. So what we've been seeing over the past, let's say, since December, is that the market has just been going in a tippity tumble down the rabbit hole. And so essentially we have a lot of stocks that are in correction. We also have a lot of stocks that are far beyond correction. So for those that don't understand, correction means that you're down 10%, maybe 15% from your all-time high or your 52-week high.
Okay.
So you got stocks that are down 30%, 40%, 50%. So yeah.
Are those tech? But those are not
about it. No, these are tech companies. The companies that have been, like, literally lifting up the S&P 500 and holding the line. Let's just say they haven't been holding the line lately.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Apple.
Okay.
Is Apple holding the line, or would you say it's also
they put up a good
down,
fight,
like,
I was
Tesla
gonna say
or something like that? Right?
Look, they tried, but look, they were trying to wobble and weave, but
hey man, they're doing the Mayweather over there, man. They're not getting uppercuts like Tesla.
Well,
Are they?
okay, so
Nah.
yeah, but you know,
That's
so the
different,
thing,
though.
Apple and Tesla are apples to asteroids, right? In a so to speak thing, right? They're completely different,
I like that
like
analogy.
trajectories, the speed, right? The
Mhm.
whole their whole vibe is different, right? Apple's like, yeah, you give me, 4 months, I'll give you $100 billion every 4 months.
Tis true.
That's what I do. Like they're so good, it's boring. That's the problem with like Apple, right? That's the only real thing with Apple. Is like there's no oomph anymore for people. People have gotten so complacent. They're like,
Mhm.
oh my God, Apple is bringing in the GDP of 7 different countries total every quarter. God, why won't they innovate anymore? And it's like, me personally, me and Mark have had this conversation, but I
We
personally
have.
think Apple's innovation is reliability in a
Yep.
world of
Un-
this is broken, or this is bankrupt, or this has disappeared tomorrow, or this isn't here, or tariff on, tariff off. A company that is there every day, wakes up, makes $100 billion, goes to bed
reliable.
quietly, reliable products work. Apple Intelligence, Apple Maps was notwithstanding so far. We'll just leave that here. Everybody doesn't bat 1,000, but I mean, those hits definitely do work, right? I mean, they are definitely Steph Curry with the products.
Mhm.
You can expect them to
For
throw
sure.
one up, and it'll land most times. So I think their innovation is reliability. And meanwhile, Tesla, right? Tesla's innovation initially was the cars, right? And they have innovated in a lot of different ways. It's just they need to land those innovations now, right? And they got to land those innovations, and they also have to do another thing that doesn't have anything to do with their innovations, right? And we've had that kind of set conversation in depth as well. They've got an image issue, right? And that's why they've descended 10 times the amount as Apple has in the same time. But if you look at all those charts, and I don't mean that's the only thing, right? Tesla has always been a more volatile stock in general.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Mhm.
It
Yes.
has a whole different range of people that are in that stock compared to Apple. Right. Apple's much more to Uncle Charles, like, man, I'm gonna put this thing in here and I'm gonna retire and I'm done. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's gonna come home.
Well, they say Apple's a stock that you own and not trade. I mean, I think that's good to know. But since December 27th, Apple is also down 19%.
So yeah, everybody came outside and got a whooping. So yeah, it is true.
Listen, so everybody is like literally like, now, of course, your stocks that are more volatile, right? Like they probably have taken the hit harder. Like, for example, Nvidia currently down 24.6. At the lows, it was down 31.5%. If we look at Netflix, though, let's see, where they were at 1,064. Oh yeah, they definitely took their medicine, down 19%. Now only down by, I think it's like 12 or 9%. So yeah, we've seen a lot of companies just get taken to the woodshed and everything else. But it really like asks the interesting story. Is this going to be, is the journey over for these companies? Now, I do want to get back to the Apple conversation, but I want to make sure that everybody has their opinions being voiced early on. Is this something in which that we're saying that, okay, hey, is this like what we're looking at as the beginning of something more sinister? Or are we saying that this is like, okay, all is well, all is good. Some companies are going to just have stronger drawdowns because they had astronomical runs up to the top. So what say ye?
Well, as you know, being a student and still learning a lot in the market, right? We all are. Some are graduates doing their, their thesis, while others are, just starting school, right? But I say all of that to say, is it seasonality that we're seeing, or is it a lot of the sentiments that goes, with a change in administration, or is it just, the stock as, gone through that peak and, it's trying to correct, or is it a combination of all of that? That I don't know. But from what I've looked at, usually March, September, from just looking at seasonality, it's always bound to show that correction or that certain drop or
Well, not
with the
always.
seasonality.
Not always. So, like for
Okay.
example, like we
Not always. You're right.
yeah, like for example, we've had astronomical runs over the years, and honestly, it's like don't get me wrong, we've had stocks gone parabolic over the years,
Okay.
like so, which means that they've gone on significant runs and everything else over a period of time. I mean, the last time that you could probably look back on a chart to see that where everything was like kind of like not acting out of order or whatever it was, you have to go all the way back to really 2019.
Okay.
Like if you pull up any chart and look at from let's say 2015 to 2019, and then look at like December 2019 all the way to 2025,
yeah,
you will see that this movement far outstretches everything. In the sense, you pull up any chart. If we pull up any chart, we would see that essentially that has been the movement since probably the pandemic, when rates got cut to zero, probably like February 3rd of 2020. Like during that week of that time or that month of that time, from that point on, we've just seen every stock go on an astronomical run. Now, unless you're just a company that's just been trash, you're probably you probably are at the same level where we once started. So like if you went on an astronomical
Palantir
run,
trash. Well, no, I'm joking.
Okay, I mean, I'll go there if you want me to.
No.
Look. If you want to take it there, I'll take it there. But I mean, if you think about it, though, Palantir came to the market. I think it was October of 2020.
Okay.
So like they're only like 5 years in, really.
So they're babies. Okay.
They're still babies in the game. Like they just went on this astronomical run, and this year, well, COVID actually didn't really help them. Like they had their run when like all companies when they go public, they pop, and then after that first month or something like that, or first 3 months, the market is like, okay, all right.
Yeah,
and then essentially it's like, you see it with every single stock, and then next thing you know, they start getting coverage pickups, and then that's when you start seeing the buyers activity go into the stock. I think with Palantir, they started showing that they can bring in revenue outside of outside of the U.S. government, and they've been stringing along a few wins as it pertains to their earnings. And I think that's ultimately, and then with the pickup of coverage, I think that's the reason why we're seeing that the stock is ultimately outperforming. But even then, if you look back to where 2020 was versus where it is now, I mean, for perspective, Palantir was a $9 stock. Now it's a $90 stock.
Yeah.
So if you just bought the stock, then you just 100 extra capital.
Yeah, easily.
I mean, you had to go through some things. Don't get me wrong. You had to go through some things and some market capitulation. But again, it's like, okay, hey, like, and keep in mind the stock got all the way up to like 125 earlier this year. I say earlier this year, and it's only March.
And its trajectory is only going further. I mean, come on, look at what administration's in charge. David Sachs is what the AIs are, right? I think they have lunch together. Like, and they're already them and was it Andrew? They're already like neck deep in the defense contracts already, and they're just getting more and more right now. So. Yeah, it's only a trajectory on the way up now. It had to kind of find its footing, right? And so, but yeah.
Well, and to bring it back though, because one of the things I want to make sure that we don't leave no stone unturned, and feel free, D'Angelo and Vic, if you guys want to chime in, like because y'all getting a little quiet over there, and that ain't gonna happen today. One of the things that I consistently hear about Apple's innovation or lack thereof is like. One of the most asinine comments that I always hear, like completely asinine. And here's the reason why. Like Apple, like once upon a time was using Intel and AMD chips and NVIDIA chips in their laptops and in their devices. Now they create their own. And it's like the chips ultimately get better and better to the point where they compete against, rival PC makers. Like when you think about the tech space is still a sea of Macs with a few window PC makers or users that ultimately like want to buck the trend, so to speak. The Vision Pro, though that it wasn't the greatest of launches because it was too expensive for the masses. I mean, it was still a beautiful product that was developed that ultimately showed that we could push the boundaries of things and actually show real use case applications. And I'm going to take it even further back because, in order for Steve Jobs to do the things that he did, he needed a Tim Cook to be innovative for those things to happen. Now, of course, they don't really have a hardware-centric founder or a hardware-centric CEO at the forefront. But I mean, to think about like how name a company that's better than Apple that when it comes to supply chain and logistics. You can't name one. Name a company that literally
Amazon up there.
Yeah, I was thinking Amazon, but you say no.
Outside of owning your own planes.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Look, if a supplier said that they wanted to change their prices as it pertains to things, who has pricing power? The people who control the supply chain that literally are top-notch supply chain and logistics, they can set the price, or they can ultimately say, okay, hey, you want to raise your prices? Oh, well, good luck with that. You ain't going to raise ours. And you're gonna go with it. Like, remember when TSM was raising everybody's prices, they didn't raise Apple's. So, and then on top of that, when you think about like the AirTags was created in 2021. Like, name a device that literally can compete with the AirTags that is that proficient as it pertains to spot on GPS geotagging.
I don't know of any other thing that's out there in the market like that.
Okay. All right. So what about the Apple Watch Ultra? How many of us actually have Apple Watches on our wrist? How many of us have?
I got the Ultra.
How many of us have Ultras? How many of us have Ultras?
I don't have Ultra. But
listen, that 4-day battery life is different.
You missing out.
But Mark, why do we have Apple Watches? It's because we're so resilient to change. There's so many other resistance. I'm sorry, resistant to change.
We're not resistant. He's about others are, right? Is that what you're about to say?
I'm saying let me land my English very well. Exactly. Wait, hold up. Put it back up. Put it back up. Which one do you personally use? Those are
all
testing.
three.
No, those are
testing. No. One of them I use for testing. One is
exactly.
If I need to be gone in 39,
he uses Apple, y'all.
I use Apple, but if I need to be gone in 39 minutes,
you can't flash a bat phone like that.
He was talking a lot of ish about what the green bubble, the blue bubble. Remember all that conversation we had?
But think about it. That conversation is now over. Now you can also do RCS with an Apple iPhone.
Yeah.
Okay. All I'm saying is we have this Apple Watch because
I'm just trolling.
There are other I know, but there are other Android devices that we choose not to use, even if they're better, right? Because we're just so accustomed to.
And that's kind of like Apple's thing, right? They keep you so tied into their device because everything is so connected, and to move all of your data to another service provider, I'm good.
But here's my thing, right?
It's a cult.
But here's my thing, right?
I'll be probably in that cult.
I don't think it's a cult, right? I don't feel like I'm getting shortchanged, right? Like I know a lot of people. I don't feel like I'm getting shortchanged. Like I feel like a lot of people get their Apple. I mean, they get their Android phones, and it's like their Android X324, and it's like we have this proprietary brand new thing that doesn't really matter because nobody else has it and nobody else uses it.
The shade of Samsung right now.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like they're it's almost like they're just throwing everything at the wall, like, and it's like, yeah, we have 4K video like 10 years ago. Like, good for you.
They did.
Nobody else, exactly, but nobody else did. Nobody else barely does now. Right?
You could literally do a test and see like all the kids, like take a 4-year-old and put an Android device and an Apple device. Which device do you think that kid is going to pick up and understand immediately?
Apple.
That's the point.
Stop playing. No. I don't agree. No,
they actually did a study on that. That was actually true.
I mean, and I think that's built.
Wait, what device do you use, sir?
Hold up.
Yeah,
hold up. I am in the Colts too.
Oh, you're in the Colts too?
I'm in the Colts too. I use Apple But look, shout out to my friends that use Androids and all of that. Look, they showed me their phone.
He's switching up friends. That's the reason why. That's the reason why he uses WhatsApp, so that way he doesn't have to use iMessage or messages.
No, I use both.
Wow.
Wait, let me land.
Ahead,
let me explain.
Land the plane.
All I'm saying is that Apple, as they're the best marketers, and they figured out a way to draw the attention of their customers and retain them. I've seen some other non-Apple phones that made me have a second thought. And obviously you see my name tag, family man. If my wife didn't say no, we're sticking with Apple, I might have thought about it.
But not family man. How much time you got to dedicate to learn a brand new phone, family man?
I don't have to.
How much time? How much time you got?
Relearn nothing.
No,
Yes,
but I mean, yeah, you are, man. It's gonna be little quirk. It's the same. Okay, so like we're tech, we're tech. Okay, we're tech influenced, but even then, like, right?
Yeah.
That first time you jumped from what you initially did from PC to Mac, right? That was a learning curve, right? You had a little bit of this and that, right? This is gonna be this. I mean, that doesn't work for us now, right? Because we're way into it. But like the average person that works every day, that needs that phone to exist, that needs that phone to be dependable, it needs that phone to work, and it has their entire life on that phone, man, they ain't going nowhere. And more importantly,
the brand. That's what I'm saying. The code.
But hey, look, but the thing is, if it didn't work, we'd leave. You know what I'm saying? But like you wake up every morning and everything does what it says it's supposed to do. All my stuff talks to each other. You know, some of the updates make it look weird, but I'm in the developer program, so our things are a little half cooked. You know what I'm saying? Right. So, but and that's fine. But like,
I like it here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah,
you're broke. I'm not like you.
I'm not saying that Apple doesn't work well. I'm just saying is that we love Apple and we stick with Apple. Even if there's a better phone out there, we stick with Apple. That's just what we do, and that's it. That's all I'm saying.
Look, Tim Cook looking into the camera like,
well,
turn his TV off.
Hey Tim, look, let's talk.
I switched
something
from Android to iPhone in like high school. So I was technically like a late adopter to that party.
Same here.
Okay.
But it does feel a lot different. Like an iPhone felt better than an Android. That's why I stuck with iPhone to this day. It's like it just feels better.
And it goes back to that conversation we had.
All of the folks that watch the Come Up series, we don't want no smoke.
Family members that still have an Android, they still use it. And I'm like, ew. When I use it, I'm just like, just doesn't feel right.
It goes back to the psychology of it though, too, right? Like when you opened your first iPhone, did you not feel kind of like you were in like the new age of phones? Right. And like I've seen some of my relatives unbox an Android, and I'm like, ew. And then they can't even work it. But
that's what I'm saying.
And they're so smart. They are so smart.
I'm calling Omaha.
But wait though, but that's the point, right? Like every time you got to learn a brand new thing. Like all these phones are not uniform. Like I mean, Android, that whole swath of phones is that the range of them is so different. You're trying to like operate them and figure it out. Every one of them, it's like, okay, well, I need to figure something out here. And yeah, we're all reasonably smart people, but we ain't got the time for that. Nobody got. Look, I'm the kind of person that like I would pull my Mark Zuckerberg early 2000s era where I'd have like 17 pair of the same clothes.
I'm glad that you mentioned Mark Zuckerberg because he's on the record of saying that. No, he's on the record for saying that Apple hasn't innovated anything.
Wow.
I wonder what device does Mark Zuckerberg use?
See, I was about to say, not only that, but it's like, bro, like, I love you, Mark, man. You're like the quintessential founder, and like you're kind of the guy I look after, but you ain't innovated. You bought things. you innovated. Let's say I'm gonna say you're running with the AI innovation. That's about your body, but I mean, you bought Instagram, which is smart.
You bought WhatsApp.
Brilliant. You bought WhatsApp, which is
bought Oculus.
You bought Oculus. Again, these are all brilliant acquisitions. Brilliant.
Yeah, he made like over 50 acquisitions.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of them. They're like, he just was throwing money out there. Like, let's just see if this is gonna work. But I mean,
well, you know the reason why he did that though, right? Because nobody wanted to work at Facebook, so they had to go through periods of acquiring teams for like tens and millions of dollars per acquisition. So that way they didn't even care about the tech. They just acquired the company, so that way they could have the hire.
So they don't work. We're gonna buy you.
They had to tie pork chops around their waist to let the dog play for them. Play with them. That's what it is.
Hey, that's smart though.
Hey, man.
Listen,
that's wild.
But did they stay though? But did they stay?
Hey. Man, look, it's comfortable over there. I ain't gonna lie.
After that golden handcuffs period is off, like look, people be looking around like,
you know, foosball, latte.
Okay, so let's get off the Apple train because we can go down this pathway like a Michael Jordan versus LeBron debate.
Don't get too started.
You know what?
Lakers in 5.
You already know.
Okay. All right. So, but let's have a further conversation, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
So, what is it going to take, in your opinion, for tech companies to get back on track and for investors to fall back in love with tech companies? Because we've been seeing the Mag 7 like literally get so big, like reach astronomical valuations. I guess we'll throw in Tesla in there too. I mean, with the whole shenanigans and everything else that's going on there. So what's it going to take? And here's an interesting thing. Like, somebody had posted in the chat on, I think it was like Friday, where they're forcing the stock to drop by like literally taking all these ridiculous out of the money puts against Tesla.
Oh yeah.
To force market makers to literally short the stock, to squeeze it to literally sell off. And I think that the puts are like at $100 strikes. Across the entire board where a lot of the volume is, which is ultimately putting pressure against the stock. So now let's just say that that's all across the Mag 7 or all across tech. So what would it take in order for that to change? So like we're currently sitting where we're sitting right now. What would take the market to go back up and literally to go challenge a new record high? So let me ask your opinions.
Not being in a 24-hour news cycle.
Of the stock, or is it because of the other things that are going on? Not including Tesla. I feel like that's different. But
you're saying that it's in a league of its own.
Yeah, Elon's out here doing his.
We're gonna hold all hands. We're gonna hold an all hands meeting for Tesla next week.
Yeah, but every other company, it's like, what did they really do to? Like, is it the actual company or is it the political / economic factors going?
All I know is that it's never good when you call an emergency all hands and you beg people to hold on to the stock. You beg the employees to hold on to the stock. This is that Jeb Bush please clap moment. Like he needs to slow down with this. Like, but like, okay, here's the thing, right? I think market wise, I think we are kind of in that healthy correction area so far, right? We're in that place so far where we kind of needed to take a break. We've been wilding since 2022, basically. Since the end of 2022.
They've been running since August of
even before. Year, I mean, look, the market bottomed from the inflation stuff at the end of 2022, right? Back in the day, back then, again, Meta, wherever it is now, it was $90 back then. I remember tweeting about this and going, hey guys, let's not be dumb. Let's not be dumb. Meta's not going to be $90 forever. And so
I remember we were on the same call where we're talking about NVIDIA and everything else. Yeah.
I was like, guys, I want to back the boat up here. But but I think we're in a healthy correction now. And I think people are in kind of a wait and see thing because they don't know what's going on. Right. They don't know like what to expect. Yeah. And I think in the market in general, it's like, okay, well, tariffs on the day, steel, copper, no, whiskey's this. No, it's like, what are we saying? And I think they're all in a holding pattern until, what did he call it? Liberation Day? Was it April 2nd coming up here?
April 2nd.
Yeah, where he's supposed to launch all the other tariffs that he's going to have.
The reciprocal tariffs.
Yeah,
allegedly.
Wait, the president is doing that April 2nd?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be these things, and I think the market is honestly waiting to see what happens then, and then the retaliatory measures, and that'll determine whether we are going through a healthy correction or we're about to go through an unhealthy half of the year.
Well,
I think it's.
Go ahead, guys.
Go ahead, Tunde.
Well, I was just gonna ask. The question is that, you know, when you're talking about markets, right? And you bringing in government, and anything the president says is unstable, right? And then you bring in tariffs, right? I'm trying to figure out, doesn't tariffs has a big impact with companies and essentially a big impact with the stock market, right?
Well,
So
it depends if the company says that they're going to eat it. It depends if the company is going to eat the costs, which will ultimately pour into which will eat at their profit margins, or if they move that cost over to the consumer. Now, if their consumer is healthy enough, where the consumer says, okay, you know what, we're going to push this cost over to the consumer. We feel like, you know, that they can take it. So essentially it's like, okay, hey, and if revenues are fine, then essentially no harm, no foul. But in a case where we're seeing all these other pieces that are starting to happen, where everything else is getting more expensive, and now it's a chooser's market where you have to choose and pick your poison, well, then, you know, that could also hurt the company, because then essentially you can see a decrease in sales, even though the profit margins stay where they're at. But essentially you see the decrease in sales revenue, which ultimately eats at like the rate of profit.
Okay, so answer this question then, Mark. With all that you just said, whether the company eats it or whether, you know, the vendor eats it, it's still going to drive inflation. Is that not true? Or how does that tie in to, you know?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, though. If the company eats it, then it doesn't really affect the consumer. So the prices will still stay the same.
Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't affect the consumer. If, like, so for example, when prices went up, given that, like, let's take Apple. It's funny how we keep bringing Apple back in the conversation.
We love Apple. Like I
We're
said, we're in the cult. We're in the cult.
Next episode, we need to get those like little monk hooks, like hoodies and everything else that have the Apple logo on it.
Hey, look.
All right, so like when we were going through those inflationary periods, we saw that essentially the Apple kept its prices the same. Now their profit margins took a slight hit, but at the same token, though that their profit margins took a slight hit, but their revenues were up. Like if you go back and look at what their revenues were back when they kept prices still the same and people were still buying, I think that like people were expecting that the iPhone was going to increase by $100 and they didn't increase the price.
So it's kind of like a balancing act, right? If your revenue is going up at the same time, then you can kind of eat the cost on the back end. Is that
No. So essentially their revenues went up because of the fact that people valued the fact that they did not raise the price.
Got you.
So essentially people were like, oh, well, this is good. Like, you know, hey, they're going to eat the cost. So essentially their revenues were up to a certain degree, but their profit margins weren't up. They actually came in a little bit light. The thing that also saved Apple, innovation, services revenue, which is like, you know, their safety from inflation, was like literally like, look, it was lit.
Okay. They're doing the same thing with the new Mac Air too. The M4 is, I think, what is it? The same price as the M3 now. It's like they expected them to go up. I think it's $100 less now than what it debuted. Now, come on now.
Wow.
You get an M4 for $100 less than what the M3 debuted on.
Listen,
run it.
well, so that means I'm wrong then, because I'm just trying to understand this, like the sentiment or the consumers out there. When there's tariffs, when there's, you know, I was thinking it's going to tie into more inflation, which is also going to tie into uncertainties. So
they can.
Some people might withhold. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
They can, but not every company is Apple. So let's use a different let's use a different company, for example. Let's take Tesla, because I think that they stand to like get hit. They stand to be one of the companies that gets hit the hardest. So if we go through this trade war issue with Canada, well, I mean, there goes a lot of the materials that literally go to supplying to make Teslas. So then that means that you're going to jack up the price. Now, at the same token, it's like we're seeing the prices come down because of the fact that the love for the brand and everything else, the brand value has also starting to diminish.
I saw something about Germany. No one wants
49%
Tesla.
drop.
Like
49%
they're like, yeah,
drop in
no
sales
to Tesla.
in Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So I think it's more of the brand stuff than just the materials or the.
But
you know,
remember the
innovation of
material,
car.
but we haven't seen the hit from the materials yet, so
Yet,
we don't know.
Okay.
So
I see.
again, it's like, you know, if those things hit, then now that plays a whole different type of conversation that we have to have about Teslas or any other auto manufacturer out there.
Correct
And
me if
that's
I'm
the
wrong.
reason why that they paused.
Correct me if I'm wrong though, Mark. To Tunde's point with tariffs, we probably won't see the effects of those for like the next 6 to 9 months, really. Because in the near term, you won't really see it on the balance sheets, right?
It all depends upon cash flow and also where they're at, like, and also
The
with
companies,
their materials. Like a lot of times companies will stockpile.
Mhm.
So then that way, essentially, they're good. So like you just said, the 6 to 9 months, they're good.
Mhm.
They can stomach it for as long as it takes, with the hope that essentially that it won't last forever. But other companies can't survive that.
Target.
Like,
Hey, when the CEO comes out and says, "Hey, you guys are probably going to feel this in the next 2 weeks," I'm like,
yeah, but that's like,
clutch my pearls.
but that's like, you know, imports though. Omaha.
Okay.
Wow. Wow.
Pearls? Oh,
Sorry,
that's
dude.
wicked. That's wicked.
Y'all crazy.
And you got a Jesus chain on? Oh, that's
There's your
wicked.
second offense.
Wow.
Anyways, I digress. Okay, so but then that's consumer related products though. So that's like
Right.
imported items that are coming in and exported items that are going out. So that's much different because of the fact is it goes from there directly to the stores that ultimately sell it. Whereas like you're talking about like building, like you're importing
it's bouncing
something to be
between
used
borders.
to build.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the thing is like, I would say for everybody out there, pay attention to the supply chains, because those are the things that you really should be paying attention, not just the companies themselves, but just the entire supply chain. Because when you see these things happen, then supply chains get disrupted.
I see.
And so, which means that they have to find different trading partners. They have to come up with new trading deals, different ways as it pertains to products moving in and out of the country from different, like, so for example, I think there was word about like, you know, eggs now coming in from South Korea.
Yeah,
Like-
and Turkey, and Greenland. Like we're gonna take them over, but we need their eggs first.
Yeah. So, whereas it's like,
Bro, we're
Why you say it like that though, Princess?
I think
because that's
No, that's
literally
the
what we're
truth. That's the
doing.
truth.
We're literally
Oh my gosh.
importing eggs from Denmark, Turkey, and I think South Korea
yeah.
in order to hide the fact that we have a rampant and out of control avian flu problem across the country, and we're in trouble.
Hey, look.
So
Hey,
bringing
Tunde, you want?
That's
Hey,
crazy.
yo,
That's
you want to go in? You want to go in together in this chicken coop?
Hey, look, listen. Let me just say this.
See?
All I
See,
remember-
that was a little too energetic.
Listen, all
They
I
got excited.
remember when I was
Listen.
younger, all I remember was my parents had like a poultry, right?
Yep.
Had a bunch of chickens and so forth. And I'm blessed in a way where, you know, my parents have a split floor that they stay with us. And I was just having that conversation with them because, look, man, I can fight a lion, but I can't touch a chicken. So I told my parents, I said, look, if y'all could, you know, have that, you know, poultry again, you know, help with the chickens and all of that stuff, because we don't know what the situation might be. You know what I mean? Like egg shortage, you know, a lot of craziness is happening, right? And so my parents are thinking about it, but you know, and I got the land, but you know, we'll see. So Mark,
Wow.
we talk about that. Hey, let's do it. That could be a business right there, man. I won't be doing none of the work, but
Yo,
Neither will I. Neither will I.
They out here
Exactly.
fighting lions.
I was about to say I have spent 5 minutes on anywhere next to chickens. I'm good. I can't even ride by the chicken coops.
The BMF of eggs.
That smell, I can't do. Yeah, I know.
It gets through the filter of the car. I definitely can't be in the same block. I can't do it.
Really? Okay.
Nah, bro. I'm
okay.
too shitty for that.
I thought I was different.
It ain't
Okay.
me.
Okay.
That ain't
me. It ain't me either. Okay. All right.
All right. So let's reel it back in. So all right. So okay, I still want to know what is it going to take?
Yeah.
What are your thought process like over the next, let's say, 3 months?
Yeah.
So do you believe that there's more downside in the next 3 months, or is it us get back to normal where the market just like kind of recovers? Because keep in mind, it's like you have to have buyers on the other side, and those buyers have to have cash to spend.
Mm-hmm.
This is the case that I think about what you've taught us, right, at the Come Up series about leaps and so forth. Princess, I think you just talked about it with Meta when it was at how much was it? 90, he said?
But we had to go through the Grim Reaper moment for all of 2022.
Right, I was about to say October 22.
It was a little scary.
You remember it was $90 after Meta had fallen like 60+%. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and it'd been the greater part of that year. So yeah.
So do you guys think we're going to see a repeat of 2022?
No.
Wait, hold on.
We're trying to answer your question. No, we're trying to answer your question, but we're huddling over here.
We're
huddling over here.
This is a group question.
I think it's going to take a sentiment shift. I think it's going to take the administration to at least give them a 3-month window of semi-chaos as opposed to complete chaos in order for them to go, but not even peace. I mean, you're not getting peace. We need to just let that go. I think you need to at least get some kind of like planning for a couple quarters at least. Like we can't even get planning past a tweet. Like we need to at least all right, bro, well, by time Turkey Day, at least things will still be sort of the same so I can kind of plan some stuff. But
if we're going through all this shenanigans by the time we get to Turkey Day, we're in trouble.
Well, that was gonna be my next part of the sentence. Is like, if we are continuously after Liberation Day and we're still, I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna not do this, or I'm gonna jump on you for this, or I'm gonna take tariffs away, or I'm gonna put them on if you don't take my prisoners or whatever. Yeah, I think the market might on one hand kind of go, all right, well, this is the world we live in. We need to just kind of move on. But I think on the other hand, they're not going to jump in with both feet either. I think they're always going to be like, these people.
I think it's going to take having a stable geopolitical climate as well, right? When you're beefing with
we're basing the market off of purely politics and geopolitical.
No, I think money needs to be. I think money needs to be made, but
I think the market is very emotional right now. It's very emotional.
Markets are. Here's the one thing, little bro. Markets are never emotional. They are very decisive. They are very decisive. They're like, look, we're going this direction. Look,
is it though? But like,
if this is how you want to move, the markets will say, okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm about to say, like in the past few weeks, though, all it takes is a tweet, and then your favorite stock is down 5% in a day, and so it's like, okay, are we moving from emotional to facts? I mean, like, we had this conversation too, Mark. A lot of these companies had a previous good quarter, like they didn't have a bad quarter, so now it's like, okay, is it seasonal? Is it emotional? Like, what is it?
Keep in mind, the market was dropping since December of 2024. So essentially, we were on a downward trend where everybody was expecting Santa to come, and everybody wrote their Santa letter, and he never showed up. Look, this made everybody stop believing in Santa in 2024.
I got coal in my basket.
Listen, look. I mean, look. At least you got coal. People didn't get anything.
I got hopes and dreams.
Listen, but. I think the perspective is the fact that, look, S&P 500 earnings growth was at 18%. Over fiscal year 2024, it was at 18%. Before then, it was also pretty much on par. I think it was like 15 to 20%, something like that. Now we move into this year, we see kind of like things flaring up and like the price of things going up. Of course, we're like asking ourselves before even 2025 even hit, we're asking, okay, hey, Like people were expecting for earnings growth to significantly slow down this year. So if you see that earnings growth in the S&P 500 is slowing down from 18% to whatever arbitrary number, you got to price that in.
So the moves in the market, you would say, are more so of a price in of future earnings.
Of course, that's ultimately how we dictate the
That's
stock
always
market.
what
The
it is,
stock
though.
market is always what you see today is the future as it pertains to the stock's value over X period of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we say PE ratio of X, whatever it is. So whatever times earnings, it's trading at something times earnings. Well, we're looking at that over X amount of periods of quarterly reports, and this is ultimately how is it that we project where the stock's value is. That's the reason why we see growth companies, their growth. They don't care about returning a dividend. Like they've considered that like the Grim Reaper moment, that it's like we're out of growth when we start returning significant dividends. They just focus on like, okay, hey, we grow by any means necessary. We're going to spend a lot of money. We're going to have these ridiculous valuations that are ridiculously high, but we're going to drive forth a lot of growth and everything else in the process of doing so. And I think the thing is that's also interesting is the fact that tech earnings, it's going to be very interesting as we walk into this next quarter's reports of earnings, because now we get to kind of like see like, okay, hey, like, is everybody's thesis wrong or is it right about like, okay, hey, earnings like starting to consolidate and it's starting to slow down? If we don't see earnings slow down, and keep in mind, the reason why you saw a lot of stocks sell off coming towards the last part of the year was a lot of them were sandbagging their guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So which means that they were setting the bar, they started setting the bars low. So it begs us to ask the question, why did we set the bars low?
I see a world where I see a world where tech earnings themselves rise in the sense of like companies trying to seek productivity increases, right?
Mhm.
And so they're leaning harder into AI and they're leaning harder into other things. And I see the world where also like your utilities and your staples maybe even flatline a little bit as the consumer kind of holds on, because you hear like Nike talking about it, you know, and a few of the things where they're like, no, consumers are pulling back because they don't know, right? That you
Right.
know, like the big money is going to be the big money. They're on a schedule, they make money, they move the market. But the consumers are a little afraid now, and because the consumers are broke, right? They've been broke for a hot minute. They were good because COVID, you know, filled up their pockets for a little bit, but then you know you had years and years of inflation eating everything up, and then all of you had you know, everybody just kind of have to figure out what to do from there, right? And now the credit card debt's what we're a trillion, 1.4 trillion in debt. Credit card debt's basically, instead of basically everybody going back to that level of where it's comfortable and you know and it's sustainable, they just buffered it with credit card debt. And so
Buy now, pay later is with DoorDash. You know that was going to be my
yeah,
next thing.
Yeah, that's
I was about
crazy.
to say yes.
Look, we got to get into that
It's
part
like
of the
it's like
conversation.
everybody's been broke,
Let's
but nobody feels broke until now.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
everybody's
Yeah.
like,
exactly.
wait, I'm not
You
still
got
gonna
it.
But it-
now.
When you got installments on your which, then you know we in a different we in a different environment. So
yeah.
Okay.
You-
And doing installments for DoorDash though, that's
recession indicator.
crazy.
Recession.
indicator,
That's
there's
crazy.
a flashing strobe
Bro, you
light.
need to pay $2 like every 2 weeks.
It's like
Well, so just to tie it in,
Yeah.
does it mean that we kind of wait and see after because I think the president wants to do this. I'm gonna throw a lot of stuff, see what sticks, and then I personally truly believe, Prentice, and the rest of you guys that were talking about it, that it's gonna die down. It's gonna simmer a little bit. He's gonna go play golf, chill for a little bit, and then
not a bit.
or a lot of bit.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I'm with you. But I'm saying that in that period, when there's more stability, I think that the market might still be bullish. Why am I saying might rather than will be? Is because I don't know with this tariffs and how much implication that can have to the society as a whole. So to answer your question, Mark, look, I don't know, man. I think, in the words of Rui Hachimura, I don't know, man. but I don't think we're gonna, go into full recession, as in like all market collapse or anything like that. I think there'll be some, this period where it's kind of volatile, for a lot bit, and then
you realize the government layoffs haven't kicked in yet, right?
But
you have to remember,
they gotta call everybody back first before they count them. You know that, right?
Those numbers haven't happened yet.
Those numbers haven't hit yet. So essentially, they gave him a $25,000 down. They gave him a $25,000 upfront, like, hey, go away. Then on top of that, they gave him severance, which goes all the way till I think it's September.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't technically know what those numbers are until you get closer towards like the third quarter of this year.
And that runs out, and they file for unemployment.
See, this is the reason why they're trying to chase them back to, like, hey, like, come back to work.
Okay.
Right now.
I didn't think about that. But okay.
That was very loud.
Oh yeah,
it's not looking good right now, because like you've seen like a lot of like folks that are like, they haven't claimed unemployment yet because they can't yet, because they're still under their severance. Your severance goes through, and then when your severance runs out, then that's when you can claim unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least that's what I read. So
yeah, I don't want to go.
Yeah, it's coming.
Let's go back to.
I mean, but we also don't want to give people false hope, right? So we also we want to we want to tell people the truth, in the sense of like, okay, hey, like, this is what we see, this is what we feel, this is what we think.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think that it's like, okay, hey, that we can bounce back, yes, there is a pathway for us to bounce back. Yes, there is a pathway. I'm not going to say it's all doom and gloom either. Okay. But the more that we sit back and wait, the more that things start to portray.
Yeah. And remember, like 69% of GDP is consumer spending, right? Mm-hmm. It is people that go out like us and go buy stuff all the time. And if thousands of us no longer have employment, immediately we're going to stop buying stuff, and that's going to be less. Yeah, that's going to be less things bought. That means that companies are going to have less reasons to have less people there selling it to you, which means that they will let people go. Those people will buy less stuff, and that's how we get our word.
And then if people keep like vandalizing all these Teslas out here, that's ultimately going to be insurance that's also going to run up, because of the fact that you are making all these claims. And let's be real, insurance companies have not a single type of philanthropic bone in their body. They're going to find a way to get their money back.
Yes.
They're just going to up and leave.
The rates going up. They already are.
Yeah. So rates are definitely going up. So essentially, like, look, if you can pay your 6 months in advance or 12 months in advance, go for it.
Yeah, that's right.
What did insurance do in California? Didn't they just say
they stopped insuring?
Sorry,
people.
Bye. Exactly.
Well, no,
also
in Florida they stopped insuring
wildfire risk. Yeah, they just said we're just not going to insure.
Yeah, like there's a lot of homes out there that like are going without insurance.
Yeah, like if you have a mortgage, that puts you in default automatically, or you have lender-placed insurance. But even then, it's like.
That is insane. Like, what is the incentive of buying a home in those places if those natural occurrences happen?
No. What is the incentive of buying a home today? Like, that's the question.
Real estate's higher. Nah,
I'm about to say
that's a whole different. That's a subject for another episode.
Yeah, we can.
That one have it next week, because I think there's a reason. There's a. Big,
I mean, no, there's definitely some reasons, but you have to look at it like in a sense of like. There's definitely reasons, but in this current economy, you have to think about like one cost of it. Like there's two types of cost of affordability. There's the affordability to buy a house, and then there's the affordability to keep the house.
For sure.
Like a lot of people only focus on the affordability to buy it, but then as things change, it's not even just the maintenance.
If that HVAC go out,
you're just thinking about the house itself. We're talking about like the fact that if groceries are going up, if all your insurance and stuff like that, like your auto insurance and everything else is going up, utilities and everything else in between, outside of you just paying your mortgage and everything else, Yeah, we'll say that for next
Yeah.
week.
Honestly, feels riskier to
think
buy
that
a
one
house
next
today
time.
than it would be a benefit. Like the reward is not
All right,
outweigh the risk.
let's do a quick poll
But
real quick. Let's do a quick poll real quick. All right, Vic and D'Angelo, since you guys are in your mid-20s, if you had to choose, like, let's say that you had $200,000 today. $200,000 is what, about 20% to put down a down payment in most of in any of the premier areas of the country. So if you got $200,000 to put down and you have a job, like, so you can make the payments and everything else, are you going to spend the $200,000 today to buy a home, or are you going to put it in the S&P 500? Which one do you choose?
know the answer.
I'm about to say this is a trick question. I'm putting in the S&P. I just don't see the value.
That was very uniform.
Yeah, I just don't see the value in going to. You say I'm putting down 200,000?
Yeah, 20%.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I don't see the value in that. I think this goes back to another conversation that me and you were having, Mark, and I was interested in buying a home, and
at the time,
at the time, yeah, and you kind of open up my eyes to that actual cost of owning a home. And there's a lot of
people trying to buy a home and interest rates were at like 8%.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah,
I actually went to like a real estate agent and had them run the numbers and everything, and they was like, "This is your interest rate," and I said, "Yeah, we don't have to talk anymore after this. This is insane. Like, I'm not paying for this." I'm like the same home at $300K is not the same home with the 3% interest rate versus an 8% interest rate. I'm good. I'm super good on that.
Big difference.
Hey, D'Angelo, what you tell him? You said we don't have to talk. No,
we don't have to talk. Yeah. Actually, you can delete my number after this call.
Yeah, that's a home with a baby daddy there.
Yeah,
there's extra problems on that one.
Yeah, you're home. You're paying the mortgage and a child support right there.
Yeah.
Nah, I see D'Angelo talking about like, that's it. That's all okay, I got you. I'll call you. Don't call me. I'll call you.
But nah, man, and that's so too. Like, I'm a single man too, so then I don't have a family. So there was also like no purpose behind it too. And I think that's where I see a lot of people in my generation trip up as well. You have people out there on the internet telling people, "Oh, own a home. You're throwing your money away with renting." And it's like, I disagree.
We're gonna have to debate this today, Mark. Why next week? What are we talking about here?
Hold on.
Okay,
we may touch upon some of this. Whoa, he rolled off his sleeves. Tunde took off his jacket.
Hey, yo.
Whoa. Yo. Do I need to put this room in correction real quick?
Reset the room.
That's all good.
I don't think that you're throwing money away by renting. Renting gives you a lot of options, the flexibility to move if I want to move. If I'm unhappy with this place, I can move. Now, if I'm locked into a house that has an 8% interest rate, I ain't going nowhere. I'm gonna have to suck it up, take a walk, go do some push-ups.
Wait, I thought if you rent in an apartment, you still sign a contract for a year or for whatever the month is.
You can do month to month,
so
3 months, 6 months.
You can't just start up doing month to month, right? But
they can.
You can. It'll be more expensive. It'll be more expensive.
Like some places don't offer, some places do.
I see. Okay.
Well, okay. Look, so from a perspective of a person that does have kids, right? And I am renting right now, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason why is that I owned a place years ago, right? And we sold it. And we've rented for a while, but right now there's no incentive to own because the rental is a little crazy, but owning is insane. Right, the pressures of the payment. I mean, we get into the whole idea of like what it takes to own a home and maintain a home, which is insane alone. But just the sticker price alone right now,
it's ridiculous. Yeah,
it's ridiculous right now, right? And then of course you got mortgage rates are like about 7 now, right? 6. You can get
6.8,
right? And the reality is, right, 6.8. So it's like the average. You can get lower. But you're not going to get the 2-3 that people were doing back when I bought in like 07, and like, what have you.
Or so, like if you're buying a house in 2020.
In COVID.
Yeah.
I know a few people
does not exist right now.
They were handing them out to you with like chicken sandwiches from Chick-fil-A and was like, bro, get you a 3-2. and at 2020. So that was then, right? But
that's like the God card in cash flow right there.
Exactly. But like right now, like
you're not getting below 5.5.
yeah.
Right?
I'm waiting to see. Yeah, I'm gonna. I mean, you know, we might be some years, but I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for the real estate market to slip into a little correction, kind of clean things up a little bit, you know, and then get rid
We
of
gotta
some
wait
of the
for
fluff.
unemployment. We gotta wait for unemployment to hit like 4.5 to 5%.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, if I'm gonna be purchasing, it's gonna, you know, we're gonna have to see some of the interest rates go down and some of the, you know, the market, the inventory kind of open up a little bit and bring those prices down. That's what I'm looking at.
With the economy the way it is, do we even see those buyers even stepping into the market? Will people even have the cash on hand to step into the housing market?
Oh, Lord, now I have to talk about real estate. Here we go.
No, okay, no, save it. Sorry,
It's okay.
Let's save it for later because I wanted to come back to
now
coffee.
he wants to save the conversation.
Bro,
like
now that we got it
unpredictable
warm.
like the weather today. Tunde.
I'm bipolar sometimes. No, I'm joking. Look, listen. I had a rebuttal for D'Angelo and Prentice, but I thought if I go into my, you know, rebuttaling and all of that stuff, why not just save it for next week? If you guys don't want to
write
talk,
it down.
I thought we wanted to go back to Poppy got acquired.
Yeah, we are. I was getting ready to
make
make the transition because D'Angelo said something that gave me a perfect segue.
Okay,
he's scared.
I'll let you do it. Go ahead.
Oh.
Okay. I got something for you.
Oh, that's how we coming today. Huh?
Oh, okay.
It's all good. Hey, look. D'Angelo,
all right.
It's all good.
So I'm going to reset the room.
All right, next week.
Next week. All right. All right. So, yes. So Poppy got acquired for $2 billion by PepsiCo. And it really made me start asking the question, like I said, you know, looking at Black, like, you know, I come from a tech world. So, of course, my mind automatically thinks like tech. You know, what were the tech companies? So I want to read you guys some stats to kind of like set the stage for you guys. Because these are just raw statistics that come from like venture capital and stuff like that. Okay. So venture capital funding to Black founders in the US in 2024 was 730 million. That was only 0.48%, less than 0.5% of VC funding was estimated at $152 billion. So $152 billion in venture capital funding, it only represented 0.5%. Okay. In 2023 versus 2022, 71% drop for Black founded startups versus 37% US VC decline. So early stage rounds was a 51% drop. Late stage rounds was a 73% drop. Okay, let's get even further because I still don't have the numbers yet fully for 2024, but I can give you some color around 2023. So 173 funding rounds was in 2023. That's a 48% drop from 2022. Now, of course, you can kind of attribute that to the cost of capital going up and everything else. We saw that the inflation was running rampant. So you get also part of that. But then let's talk about representation, shall we? Black-owned businesses in tech represent 3% of total Black. They represented only 3% of total Black businesses in 2022. High-tech sector employment in 2014, 7.4% Black versus 14.4% in broader private sector. I'll keep going. Population and ownership context. So the U.S. population, as it pertains to folks in which that are Black, 14.4%. So that's 48 million. That was in 2023. Black business ownership, 5% of U.S. businesses versus 9% for white Americans. Black entrepreneurship growth, 38% increase from 2020 to 2022. So people were really running the play during the pandemic, but then as the pandemic came to its close, okay. All right, so then let's talk about corporate comparative funding examples. So the largest Black VC round in 2023 was Juniper Square for $133 million. There was also Bird, a scooter startup, in 2020. Funding outraised all Black women-led startups combined that year.
Wait, Bird was woman-led?
No.
It's a scooter startup. It's a scooter startup. Its 2020 funding outraised all Black women-led startups combined.
Oh, got you.
That year. Black women founders from 2018 to 2023 represented 0.27%. Yeah, it represented 0.2% of total US VC dollars. Okay. So let's discuss it real quick, shall we?
Well, I mean, you got all right.
And
so
Tunde will be right back. So don't worry. Tunde will be right back.
I was gonna say, yeah, he'll be right back. So
yeah,
obviously, like something as complicated as this, right? You know, it's lazy to kind of lay it down on the obvious. Well, they don't like us, you know, because I mean that's true. That is, you know, that's a reality you got to factor in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you know, there's Michael Seibels of the world, right? And you know, there are various other people that have navigated this world and have produced something that people want, right? And I think on one hand, that is part of what we're seeing, right? You saw, like you read that the percentage of Black tech companies as opposed to other Black businesses is a lower percentage than, say, white or other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I think that's because we go for what we see, right? And I don't mean to like marginalize and make people smaller, but like if you go around the neighborhood, right, you got thousands of different types of Black owned food places, Black restaurants, Black, you know, type of things, or Black entertainment or things like that. And they're all out striking, you know, making it big and doing their thing. But you don't even, like, even though we don't get the funding and we don't get the love and we don't get the respect in the tech world, you don't even get the buzz and the respect in your own community for the tech, right? Like you know, like if you're in San Francisco, right, you know, it's an understood thing that if you're working on a startup, you know, this is a thing that could be something great or it could be something nothing, but you are looked at in a different way because you're leaping and taking that opportunity and you're taking that chance, right? Very generalizing, right? But it's not always like that in the Black community, right? And you don't get forums and places where people are openly talking about things that other people want to buy, right? And so I think we got to start with that. We got to start with, like, how many different groups of people are doing things that people want to purchase. And then we have to also factor in the other obvious thing of, like, the labyrinth issues that go in with the system, right? So if you're talking about like Secrets of Sand Hill Road, right? You talk about the idea of like successive rounds of capital raising. A lot of times Black founders find themselves not being able to raise money at the beginning because the people at the beginning are afraid they'll never get out because they're afraid that people behind them won't support on the way up out the door. And so you have larger systemic things where, like, that herd mentality of VCs and investment and money, you know, kind of see each other and they assume, and again, I feel like I'm going off topic, but it's very tangential, but it makes sense. Like, it's Hollywood, Hollywood for years has always told people that a Black-led movie is not going to be a blockbuster. A Black-led action movie is not going to be an international seller. Right?
And then we have Black Panther.
Then we have Black Panther, which not only was an international seller, but it is one of the highest grossing movies of all time. And, you know, at one point, and it's the highest grossing single Marvel movie of all time, right? Like, as far as like individual, like, you know, not a non-Avenger movie thing, right? Shatters the idea. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, Black is good. Let's make some more Black stuff. And I think that's going to be one of those things where tech is going to have one of those moments where they connect the two together without feeling that they have to avoid it to be PC, because that's another whole topic, right? Nobody wants to directly attach that to attack that problem.
But Prentice, I'm going to challenge you there. I mean, because I get the part in the sense that, like, you know, we don't, like, a lot of are startups that look like you and I don't speak the language, right? They don't know how to speak the language. Now, I will put it out there. There is a startup that essentially that a lot of folks don't realize that actually is a Black founder led. Do you guys actually know of a Black founder company that's a startup that's worth over $1 billion right now?
Yeah, I can name one.
All right, which one?
I was going to say Calendly.
That is correct. Calendly is actually valued at $3 billion right now.
Yeah.
And like it stands on its own. Like it stands on its own. Now, which is very crazy though. Why hasn't Google or any of these companies like literally looked towards acquiring this company yet?
That's those questions.
That's the $1 million question, right?
$1 billion question.
Yeah, the $1 billion question.
I want to go back to something that Prentice said. One thing, I would love to see what the stats are for Black founders outside of tech. I know we're staying in the tech lane, but I think there's also some bigger issues at play too, like the barriers of entry. Because most people don't have access to tech till later on in their lives. I know
is that still true today? In 2025, is that still true today?
I have to see the stats. I don't want to.
Like I'm just saying, looking at the vast majority, not anecdotally, is that still true today?
I think there's access, just not the exposure, like the same level of exposure.
I will say that too. It might be a cultural thing as well.
It's not something you usually would hear about, you know.
Yeah, and to your point, Vic, I didn't start writing code until I was 18 or 19 years old. That was one of the conversations. Yeah, and that was one of the conversations I had with somebody out in Washington too, and Bio, shout out to Bio, great guy. And we were talking about how some people, they don't start playing with things or meddling with technology until they're later on in life, and there's people that don't look like us that have been playing with tech since they were since they've been like 8, 9, 10 years old, right? So it's like you don't have those ideas don't start spurring inside of you until you start actually playing with some of those tools, right? So I think is, like I said, I think there's a bigger issue at play than just people that look like us not being founders. So yeah, but I like to your point though, Mark. I think there is a more access to get to tech, but I think there has to be more of us spurring those conversations and spurring those ideas within one another as well too.
I feel like there has
not.
To be... Well, go ahead. I'm about to say, go ahead, Tunde. Yeah,
geographic too, though.
Yeah. I know I came in late into this conversation, but I think it's not sexy in our community.
It's not sexy to have $1 billion company.
It's not celebrated. No. Let me land. You know.
No. I was just trolling.
No. I know. Look,
let him finish.
Marking your troll today, right? But look, listen. What is more celebrated in our community? It's not tech. It's not some of those, high-paying professions.
Ignorance is celebrated in our community in 2025.
Well, what's
entertainment. That's it.
Celebrated is what people have known and seen superficially to be successful, right? I mean, I don't think we want to denigrate it to the point where it's just like pure stupidity, but it's like on a base level. Again, these are base level things where people watch football, go to work, don't think about politics, don't think about extra stuff, base level stuff. Who do they see that looks like us on top? Right? They don't see. They're not seeing George Lucas's wife Hobson, right? Melody Hobson. They're not seeing Robert Smith. They're not, however you think about him. But they're not. Again, they're not seeing those people, those types of people. They're not seeing the Coreys, right? That we just had on. They're not seeing Anthony's. They're not seeing that. They're seeing who, they're seeing LeBron, and LeBron is a great role model. But LeBron is a one of one, right? But they're seeing that rank, that place, that's the success place, and
they're seeing Kanye West, bro.
Well, that's my point, right? And that, but it goes back to that old Chris Rock joke where it's like, look, man, I had to become Chris Rock to be in this neighborhood. I live next to Oprah and all this stuff, but like Bob lives next to me, and he's a dentist because at the end of the day, there are way more super successful dentists that just got, that did that thing and kept it moving, as opposed to not, right? And I think to D'Angelo's point, I think a lot of it is geographic too, because if you look at a map, the largest concentration, the only place where Black people are 20% or more of the population is that bottom southeast part, right? From basically Louisiana to over here to Virginia to Florida, in that area. I bet if you were to map where the VC dollars stem from and where they go and where they're from, you would probably see a black hole. You would probably see a black hole in that same area, and then there'd be a little bright spot down here in Miami, because that's become popping lately. A lot of it's because of crypto, but like it's popping now, right? But there is a black hole with like where the largest concentration of Black people are. And I think that can't always be blaming everybody else, because there's money there, right? There are Black billionaires there. There are Black business people there. There are Black people that could put together funds and decide that they want to step into this game. But it's also one of those things where, to your other point, right, that we don't know how to speak the lingo, and VC worlds and startup worlds move so fast, they're not about to teach you nothing, right? Like the things that Mark has been doing with everybody for the last 4 years, this has been a valuable game that by the time you have soaked this in, you walk into one of those rooms, you sound like you belong. You know what I mean?
But the crazy part about it is that like nobody watches it. like that's the crazy part. Nobody watches it. Like the information sits there for free, and yet nobody watches it. And I'm not even just talking about people like myself. I'm talking about like there's a wide array of resources out there, and nobody watches it. And the crazy part about it is like, it's like, man, it's kind of like that thing where it's like you ask God to like, to get you through something. And it's just like, I sent you all these things, and you're like, look, I'm just going to wait on God. And he's like, wait, did you not see the plane that I brought your way? Like, like, and it's kind of like that, where it's just like, okay, hey, look, I made technology cheaper. I made it more accessible. So now it's been democratized. And yet it's like, and I honestly believe, guys, I feel like and this is where it's like I'm transitioning a little bit. I honestly believe that we are not preparing our next generation of kids better. I just honestly believe that we are not. Now, mind you, I'm not a parent. So, but it's from what I observe.
It's from on your own family or in your community, or
I'm seeing it across the entire board. Like I'm just saying, I see it across the entire board. Like I see it in the sense that where I look at like their counterparts, and how is it that like they're like completely enamored into technology from day one. And then it's like you can easily see the pathway as it pertains to what they're doing, and also like what they're being exposed to and everything else, and how it's ultimately preparing them. These kids are ultimately like, there are kids in my neighborhood. Like I can literally sit down and talk to some of my kids, like not my kids, but the kids in my neighborhood. And they literally will sit down and ask me, like they literally watch the Come Up series. And if I'm out walking my dog, the kid will ask me about valuations. Like, bro, you're 9 years old and you're asking me about valuations.
Wait a minute now.
Like I can give you other examples, but
okay. Not to cut you off, but I think about this, and I cannot ignore the struggles that or the systemic struggles that we face in our community, whereas all fingers are not equal, right? The things that the non-Black family are talking about or going through, it's not often, and I don't want to generalize, because not all Black families are all the same, but there are other things that some of us might be worried about, that you want
to know something crazy about this kid, Tunde?
They're not worried about.
Guess 9
years old.
9 years old, but guess where he comes from.
Take
a wild guess. No, he's not.
He ain't Black.
He's current, like, well, I don't know. Is Ramadan still going on right now?
Yeah.
So he's currently his family is currently involved in Ramadan. So that should give you a heads up.
They're fasting. So Turkey, yeah. I mean, Muslim, but
yeah, they are a Muslim family.
Are they black?
They come from Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
White
Oh, see now you suck your teeth at it.
White Egypt or black Egypt?
No, bro.
Oh no, the Africa Wars.
See, here
we
we go.
Stepped into Africa Wars right here.
Look, this ain't Jollof rice, bro.
But that's it. Let's not start that war.
But no, like all seriousness aside, like there's a kid that's from Egypt, there's a kid that's from India, there's a few Asian kids in my neighborhood, there's even some black kids in my neighborhood. Okay. Like there's quite a few black kids in my neighborhood. And it's like my neighborhood it's like, you know, it's a beautiful neighborhood. Like these kids have great opportunities and everything else. But it's crazy because of the fact is, like, you know, you can easily see it that we're like you easily see the kids that are being groomed to be just consumers. And then you can easily see the kids that are being groomed to ultimately be your next leaders, your next innovators, your next folks that will own something. And that's the thing. It's like I understand the struggle. Like, mind you, been there, done that. Like, look, wrote the letter. Ultimately, one day, if this ever gets out, that'll be the book that'll be published. And ultimately, when I'm dead and gone, you guys can read it. I'm just saying, as it pertains to, like, are we giving our kids, are we putting them in the best position possible to win? Or are we putting them in a position in which and I think that a lot of times parents act out of fear, out of their own personal fears, in which that ultimately they're crippling their kids from like literally becoming those next set of leaders. We'll push them in other areas as it pertains to, hey, you got to know this, you got to know this, you got to know that. Like, look, we'll push our kids to like literally be the best on the basketball court, to be the best on a track field, or the best on the football field. Right. We'll even try to push them to be the best in the class. But you're not going to push them to like literally be the next, you know, instead of us saying Steve Jobs, who was white, like, look, be the next Daquan Smith. That was ultimately black. That did better than Steve Jobs.
1000% with what you're saying. And I know you probably have more ammunition.
Oh, I do.
I
got a lot of bullets in my belt.
I got you. And I'm not going to sit here and say I 100% disagree with you. I don't. Right. But what I'm saying is that I think there's a lot of variables, right, and a lot of factoring to put into this equation, right? And I think parents can do so much. I also think the community, and this actually also ties back to education that we talked about, right? The things that they're teaching in school, right? It varies from a rich, neighborhood, school, or prestigious families, the money that they have to send their kids to private school or whatever the case is different from the education that you get at public schools and all of that stuff that you're not getting. As a parent, I can tell my kid, I want you to matter of fact, that's what I tell my kids every day, is that I know my daughter wants to be a doctor. I'm telling her, forget just being a doctor. I want you to be the best doctor. You want to be a surgeon, learn this thing about, science and all of this stuff at a younger age. And if you look in the room, she has anatomy, all kinds of scientific stuff, right?
How old is she?
She's only 9. She's only 9, and I get it. And she's a little kid. She got to have fun. We let her have fun. She plays sports. She does all this other stuff, right? But it's that push, right? Now, I'm not with her every day, all day. Like, she's in school and so forth. So that community of school, what are they teaching them? What is she actually assimilating? And then a step further in the community, right? Because I truly believe it takes a village to raise a child, right? What are they teaching them? If you're talking about your Egyptian friends or neighbors, that little boy.
I didn't say that we're friends. I said that they're neighbors.
Yeah, neighbors. I corrected myself. But if you're thinking about that person, right? Depending on what he or she's parents already taught them, it also depends on, what surrounds that child, right? Whoa. That exposure that I think comes back to what D'Angelo is saying. But I think if it's not there, then how do we give back to the community to try to get those programs available to be able to help this, so the mind of those little kids can be trained that, oh, my dad never taught me this, my dad or my mom didn't tell me this, but the community has that exposure to get me there.
But Tunde, a lot of the parents are also blocking their kids from actually even reaching this level of greatness themselves.
Well, so so I'll push back on that a bit, right? I think most parents are tired, bro. Like they got no time, they got no energy. They don't even want to think about feeding people, let alone what they're gonna feed them, right? Like
that's that systemic issue. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're right. Even like in my perspective, like, I mean, we're comfortable and we're doing well, right? You know how mad I am thinking about what I got to feed these kids every day, all day. And that makes it's exhausting, right? And I'm like, I'm extremely privileged in that, sense, right?
Wait a minute. Didn't you just make them catfish? And what was it that you made? Like, you made a whole grandiose meal.
Look, I get fancy sometimes. I'll be feeling this some days. But the grind of it, right? Like 2-3 times every day, it's like, bro, just get a hot pocket and leave me alone. Like, it's like, but I think like in that sense, right? And it's not an excuse, but it's kind of like a part of the reality. It's like when you're a parent, right, and you're in the grind and you're raising these kids, sometimes parents abdicate responsibility in the sense that they think the school is doing something different than what it's supposed to do, right? They think the school is supposed to educate your kid and raise your kid on the thing, right? But like the school is the floor, right? That's why if you don't graduate high school, you get a GED, a good enough degree, right? I mean, it's a general education degree, but it's good enough to get started so you don't fall out and walk into traffic, right? That's what all school is. School is the foundation so you can build whatever structure you're trying to build later in life, right? If you walk out of it, and so, but throw aside the fact that public school is teaching kids for the information age and not the attention age that we're into, right? I think you've got a lot of parents also that are teaching them for the age that they think we're still in, right? And so they and so it's all about, do your studies, learn this, remember this, right? Don't pay attention to this, don't do this. But it's like they're missing the point. A lot of those attention age things, that they would have redirected to something else that made sense to put your attention on, then they could do that. Now, to the community's point, right? We got to find a smarter way to do it, because things like, Black Girls Code and other type of situations, they're great and they're smart, but they're already out of favor, right? Unless they're in there doing prompt engineering today, and I don't know if they are, right?
They are.
Are they? Okay, well then that'll be awesome. If they're keeping up with the time, that's great. But like, we have to do something that's less centralized. It's got to be something that's more like, again, to your point and to Mark's point about the Egyptian kid talking about evaluation, right? You have Indian culture where they revere spelling bees. They revere those flash addition things, the things where the kid's doing the things with his hand and they're like multiplying these multiple thousands of in 30 seconds, right?
Yep.
They celebrate that. Yeah.
They celebrate that. They revere that, right?
We celebrate Kanye West, bro.
No, I mean, I'm not even gonna go that far, right? Because I think Kanye's on the outside of Black culture, screaming to be let in. I mean, if you be real.
Princess, see, that's what I'm saying, Princess. No, we got to accept that. We got to accept that, because essentially, like, at one point in time, we exalted this man as in the sense of like giving him his genius card. And then at the same token, when it's like when he started showing out and showing his ass, and essentially we also have to take that also that comes with it.
Well, no, I mean, look, no, trust me, Kanye got kept in the room. He got left in the room way longer than he should have, right? He should have been let go with that as a choice. That should have been the end, period, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's on us.
That's on us. We got to accept that.
We got to accept that, right? But at the same time, it's like,
we got to accept the fact that we also exalted a Dr. Umar.
Look, man.
Or Mayweather. I was exalting Mayweather.
Here's the worst.
We got to take that medicine. Look, it's painful. We got to hold our nose and look.
50 told me about him. I didn't listen.
But the problem is that we listening to 50 too, right? Like, I mean, again, I think, right.
We also listened to a man in a skirt that gave us a bunch of granny movies called Tyler Perry.
Look, man, here's the thing. I can only hate on Tyler so much because all of Black Hollywood has got a job because of that dude now.
That's a fact. That's what I'm saying. We got to accept. That's what I'm saying. We got to accept
Cat Williams is on the rise too.
We got to accept the good, and we also got to accept the bad that also comes with it.
Well, and I think that brings up a good point, right? Like, it's like, how do you get the resources in order to do the good that you want to do, right? And how far do you, and what do you have to do to get there, right? Like Tyler Perry, he wore a dress and acted a fool, but now he has one of the largest studios in America, and Marvel and all the other people do that. It's like, do the ends justify the means in that way, right? Has that moved us forward? And that's I think I'm wondering.
Well, what does that look like for us to be moved forward? Is it move forward just for us to like have another job where essentially a company is just paying their subscription fees to have you? And essentially, they're probably getting the special discount code just to have you. Or does it have a difference where it's like now there's actual percentage equity numbers, in which that now it's like, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, when does it become the part where Black folks, where it's like people that look like us, the gentlemen in the room, and also the ladies out there, when does it come to the part where it's like our names are also on the door? Like, our names are not on the door, not also in the sense of like a special thanks to. But no, like in the sense that your name is a part of the cap table. Your name is also a part of your name is also being included in deals. Your name is also getting the acquisitions and everything else. My question is, when do we get to that point? Like, is that the end goal? If that's not the end goal, then essentially, then we need to reevaluate.
And I think that comes back to Tunde's point about community and what we're telling our kids as well.
I mean, bro, the community's let's be real. The community's cooked. Like, the community's cooked.
I won't say all that.
It's cooked. Like, and there's nothing wrong with us saying that. Like, I think that the thing is, like, for me, it's like, it's okay to like say that, okay, this has failed. The sooner that we say that something has failed, the more that we can come back and say, okay, hey, now that we realize that we failed here, let's come back and let's readjust, let's fix it. Or if we can't fix it, let's rebuild it, or let's build something new. But instead, we always try to say that, okay, hey, that this isn't cooked or this isn't a failure, when it really is, and then we're just going to continue to keep perpetuating the same failure and not getting any better. Like, imagine, like, okay, like I'm about to say something that's also going to put us out there on blast. I hope you guys understand that. We're all LPs of FTC. If a company within our portfolio is a failure, do we want to sit back and say, oh, well, I don't think it's cooked, but or do we call it what it is and say it's a failure and we need to brush it up? We need look. It's a wrap in the booth.
You got to
yeah.
No,
that's money right there, though.
Well, I mean,
it's all money.
It's all money. No, I agree. Look, I agree in the sense that that's how you would look at it. But I also look at we've got to figure out where this ends, right? Because there are green shoots. There are green shoots out there where people and they need to be spotlighted, and they need to be shown, and they need to come back and replicate themselves, right? Because at the end of the day, or at least show how it happens. You know what I mean? Like, because again, like we go back to the origin of this, right? You popping out of the shadows and showing that people like you exist, right? And B, this is
I felt like Kendrick Lamar when he said sometimes you got to pop out and show.
Yeah,
I really feel like I cried a little thug tear because I felt like he was talking directly to me. So I was like, look, sometimes you got to pop out and look.
I mean, look, I think
either that or whacked out murals. Take your pick, Vic.
And it depends on what part of the day there. But I think it's a kind of a corny saying, right? But a lot of people, they can't be it until they see it. Yeah, and I know it sounds crazy, but another thing that I was always reminded by my sister-in-law, who's an artist, right? She's like, Prentice, we put chairs and stuff in the room when we show houses because people don't have imaginations. Because people are not because people are nowhere near as creative as you think they are, right? As you assume they are. And so for those of us that are thinking in those ways, right, we assume that everybody else is just getting this, right? That it's just understood. And so I think our challenge, right, is making what's effective and important entertaining, because I think, and not even entertaining, right? I think it's got to start being entertaining, but then it's got to be like habitual, right? Like my
crazy.
wife is
that's crazy that it has to be entertaining.
Yeah, I was about to say that too.
Look, man, I hate it. I hate it.
Why do we
I hate
need to be
it. I
entertained
hate it
so much?
Yo, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
You know,
more than
honestly,
life
I'm
itself.
gonna tell a little truth bomb about myself. In 2023, the reason why I stepped away from the Come Up series was because of the fact that I got tired of being an entertainer to people. I felt like I was just being more of an entertainer versus a person that which was ultimately people were actually like, I doubted like whether or not people were truly listening or not to the Come Up series. And Joel and I honestly, it also caused a lot of PTSD out of all the shit that I also took for also like, you know, doing this when honestly I didn't get paid a dime to do it. And so essentially it's like, you know, it was challenging. The reason why I came back was I remember sitting at the summit, and I think you were around, Princess, or somebody else was around, and somebody said, you know, you were a light that was like in the midst of a lot of darkness that ultimately things became dark again. We need that light back because without it, it's like essentially there's a lot of people that are lost. And I'm like, and here it was, I was just thinking that, okay, hey, I'm just a person here that you just think that I'm here to entertain you or just to ultimately be your yes man and everything else. And ultimately it's just making me feel terrible because I'm not seeing people win. But it took the summit for me to actually see, no, there's actually a lot of people out here winning. It's just that nobody really hears about them because they remain quiet for their own respective reasons. But yet at the same token, it's just like, okay, so we did do some things right. But yet at the same token, it's just like, okay, well, you know, it's a very relieving effect to hear that a person like became like you hear people walk up to you and be like, dude, I'm a millionaire because of you. No, you're not. You're a millionaire because you chose to make a decision for yourself. Like you just happened to scroll across my video or Joel N's video and ultimately watch some of the content and say, you know what? Hey, I'm going to take this information and I'm going to chew on it. And then ultimately I'm going to make some moves about it. But, you know, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, look, we got to get out of this part as it pertains to being like this whole entertainment thing. Like hell, even this show, it's like, yeah, we joke, we kiki and all this other stuff. But yet at the same token, we're talking about some real shit because of the fact is we live this every day. We see it every day. We experience it. And essentially it's like, look, if these conversations don't exist, like, you know, I hear about all these folks that are millionaires and ultimately they're not teaching anybody a damn thing.
At a fee.
The only thing that
is not free.
It's like forget about it. Even if you are teaching it with a fee, because that's you. That like if you want to, I don't care about that. My thing is like it's the subject matter and it's the substance as it pertains to what you're teaching. If you're talking about that you're sitting in rooms with people in whom which that like hold billions of dollars, then bring those billions of dollars conversations to the room. Have those conversations. You know, you talk about like, you know, Tunde said something about community, right? Like in the sense of it takes a village. Well, what good is a village if everybody's just sitting out there just walking amongst themselves and saying that we're all part of the same tribe, but nobody knows each other?
It's not. That's
like a that's a tribeless tribe. What's the point? And so that's what I'm saying right now. It's like it's really looking like we literally say that we're this tribe of people or we're this culture of people, but yet, okay, well, where is it at? Where is it at? Where essentially like I can see us rallying up to like, okay, hey, we're gonna boycott Target. Okay, go for it. But okay, instead of that, what's the next company that's ultimately out there that's a black grocer out there that's ultimately trying to compete in the same space with these retailers that happens to be black?
Yeah, that also kind of played me too, because it's like we can boycott these things, in which I'm all for it, but what's the foundation that we lean back on, right? Like what do we go to?
And the competition's open.
Yeah, right. And it's not to say that because the one thing about black people is, right, is we know how to spend $1. May not be always the smartest move, but we know how to spend $1, right? So back to Tunde's point, like what is that next step look for us, right? You can say the community is, I don't think it's, I say the model of the community which is moving it is cooked. I agree on that point, but I would never say our community is cooked, but we do need to come up with a new model that which we can lean back on, and instead of saying let's boycott these things, but we don't have nothing to fall back on.
It was so funny.
Build the new model with the people that's already with the cook model. I feel like at that point, it's like you got to start from scratch.
You got to start from scratch. Like
everybody can't go.
Okay. Let me ask you this, D'Angelo. Let me ask you this. If let's say that I cook something, I'm hosting something here in my house, and I could like I try to recreate Erica's tacos, which Okay.
Those are good, man.
Right. So let's say that I try to recreate Erica's tacos, and those are terrible.
Yeah, I want the original.
And are we gonna sit back and say, oh well, it could be fixed, or are we gonna say, oh no, it's a wrap? Like we gonna throw this in the trash.
I get that. Look,
what Marcus says, Erica, we're gonna need your help to come help this man because he's literally butchering your tacos.
Hey, I get it. I'm about to say, what Marcus saying is we got to let go of some of like the church mentality where it's like that's okay, baby. Like you can miss every note on the whole song, and it's like,
no, if you can't sing, you just can't sing, and somebody just needs to like literally be like, bro, either you need to go get voice lessons, and if you've done that and it still don't work, look. What's your next thing?
Like Cat Williams at First Sunday.
You can be an engineer, brother. You know you can.
No more participation trophies.
But look, yeah.
Thank you. See, Tunde and I have gotten into like personal debates about this as it pertains to participation trophies, and this is the reason why I'm saying we're cooked. Because the thing is like we kind of fed into this bullshit as it pertains to like everybody gets a trophy for participating, when in reality, look, there is no participating. Like either you're a winner or you're a loser. If you lose, learn from the loss and ultimately come back and retool to be a winner. And in some cases, you may not be that winner. You may have to find something completely different, and this may not be your sport, or this may not be your craft. This may not be your calling.
Find something else, yeah.
Look, find something else. But the thing is like we give people this false sense of confidence. We give them this false sense of hope that ultimately, that honestly, it's like it's not there. One, and then two, we perpetuate these same types of conversations that are BS, and it's just like, what are we doing? Like really, what talk are we doing?
You don't take an L. You can't learn from non-mistake. Like I've had my biggest growth in my life every time I took an L.
Let the kid, like I said, let the kid fall. Let the kid fall. If the kid falls and scratches their leg or whatever it is, okay, what did we learn?
So Mark and Vic,
it's all right, it's all good. You can do it again. I'm gonna keep doing it. Now I'm just here.
So okay, we've walked across something that people walk across normally, right? I guess the next step is what does it look like having the kid fall? Isn't the kid already on the floor? Like, haven't we already been like kind of hit by a bike? Like the next step is like,
wait, he got hit by a bike.
Well, I mean, this kid, like the black community
was this a hit and run?
Look, the black. I mean, again, like black family net worth is what, like 1/10 of white. You know, we're still in 2025, right? We're still here now, right? And so it's like, what does it look like with the community? Like we haven't already fallen. They already let the kid fall. And then more importantly, how do we get the kid up, and what do we move forward with? Right?
We challenge the kid to do better. We let them know, like, okay, hey, you've fallen, and ultimately, like, okay, hey, pick yourself back up and try it again. Except take the lessons that you learned as it pertains to how you fell, and essentially remember this, and ultimately, before you do it again, think about it, and then at the same token, keep going. Now, if you keep running into the same issue, like I'm not telling anybody to be a quitter, and I want to make sure that I make that like very crystal clear. I'm not telling anybody to quit something that they dream of doing, that they hope to aspire to be. But what I am saying is that, look, man, like, and I had this conversation a while back after the summit with my grandfather, and it was just more so in the sense that my grandfather says like, look, and I'm like, well, how do you feel about this current? Like, how do you feel about black folks today? He was like, we've regressed. He's like, we've regressed. And I was like, wait a minute, we've regressed. I mean, think about all the strides in which that we've done. I was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah. But think about all the things that we had to do. And even in spite of all those things, we still we were the first. We were one of one. You know, we made it so that way it made it hard for you to ever want to ever compare yourself to one of us because of the fact of like the depths of where we go. And that really hit me. Go ahead, D'Angelo, because I know that you burning to like chime in. Go ahead.
Nah, I was thinking about that too. Shout out to your grandfather. He was amazing at the summit. Our ancestors are kind of like, I don't know if I'm going on a limb saying they're kind of like the peak of which we aim to get back to. You know what I mean? Like they had community, they had.
I don't want to get back to them. I want to surpass them. Like that's the whole point. Right. We need to surpass them.
But the same thing, like you just said, your grandpa said that we regress. You know what I'm saying?
We regress.
But I think that
was the kind of like the model. You know what I mean? Like,
but I think we got to put things in perspective, man. Like I think like we, Mark's favorite quote, "Nostalgia makes liars out of all of us," right?
Yeah.
Like everybody in black community back then was not Mega Evers and
No, they
John
were not.
Lewis, and they were not. There was some stepping fetchits. There was some
They
clowns.
were.
15 to 20% of the black community didn't like Martin Luther King in the
True.
heyday of it, right?
True.
But I think what we have to keep in perspective is that yes, there was a peak and pinnacle power in our black community that had to, because they were coalesced together. They had to survive and they had to thrive, and they were
bred
there.
in war.
Well, they were in there, but I think part of what's going on with us is that we've been resting on the laurels, but B, it's a different game, right? So if we're showing up today with the same tactics, we're already 5 steps behind, right? It's a different game because they've already planned on the same, like they're fighting on like the next level, right? Like, you go back to the Avengers, right? It's like, oh yeah, you open the Tesseract. Now the whole universe knows you guys are ready for a higher level of war, right? We had civil rights passed in the 60s, and everybody, MAGA clan, Tea Party, Red Hat, whatever, were like, oh, these blacks are ready for a higher level of war. Now it's time to really come at them, right? And so that's what we've been seeing. They've been chipping away at it the last 10, 15 years in a way that people aren't paying attention to it. And I think we don't see it, right? We're not even noticing it, right? But it's undermining our traditional way into what we think we're trying to do for success. And that's why we're failing a lot of times, right? Because they're undermining our society, and they're letting us do it too by giving us the tools to do it, right? And it's like the new, like when they broke up the Black Panthers with drugs and gang and jail and persecutions and stuff, right? They're running the same game with us in social media, right? They're running the same game with us in social media, and until we figure out that that's where we are now, I think that's going to be a problem too.
Yeah,
right?
Pop the Balloon is a CIA initiative.
Hey, listen, I gotta get my entertainment. I'm okay with Pop the Balloon, bro.
Well, I mean, look,
that's the problem.
The problem is, right, is that there's a world where you can be entertained and you can talk about, progression at the same time.
I mean, there's
right?
a healthy balance of everything. But when you got like young 22 years olds saying that their goal, well, that too, but their goal is to ultimately, like, they bought a Mercedes car at the age of 22, and that's the highlight.
That is not a flex.
And yet their counterparts are literally like, hey, their goal is to reach 1 million in ARR for their company, to bring in $1 million in revenue in their company, to ultimately have a company that's valued. Like, my goal is, by the time when I turn 25, I want to have a company that's valued at $50 million and doing XYZ as it pertains to this.
I get what you're saying, but we're comparing apples to watermelons, because it's not all the the non-blacks. Why y'all laughing? Okay.
Oh, I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing. I'm listening.
They are. I get it. My analogies are not on point like Prentice, but what I'm saying is that I agree with you. I think all across the board, white, black, whatever it is, all the younger generations, we have to be more innovators, and we have to think that all about being better than our previous generation. But I do think the Mark Zuckerbergs are one in millions of white coming up, aspiring to be a founder or aspiring to be a tech person, and that.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Like, there's a reason why they're the mass majority for the reason within these arenas.
Compared to us, bro.
I'm saying compared to us, yeah.
D-Lo can probably relate to this. Growing up, for me, you see people say the same thing. Either you want to be an athlete or some form of entertainer. Okay. That's a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times that's kind of like the prototype or archetype of success. Not even knowing that half of people are not successful.
How did D'Angelo get his degree in computer science?
I think that was I think that was me just being a kid, and I like video games, and I always had a PlayStation. I was always fascinated with tech, but I never really knew where I wanted to go with it, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
hey, let me major in computer science and let me see where this could really take me. But at the same time, I don't think I would have been in. I probably would have took a different route as pertains to my higher education because I think I was looking to play sports in college, so that was kind of like my main focus. And I wish somebody would have. I wish I would have had a Prentice. I wish I would have had a Tunde. I wish I would have had a Mark that would have came on and said, "Hey, I know you love sports, but," or even Uncle Charles. I know he's not here right now. Like
Yeah.
I know you love sports, but you might want to think about some things in this arena that can propel you forward in life outside of sport because you might blow your ACL out tomorrow, and then what? What's the next step for you, right? Growing up, I always heard, hey, also, obviously, what are you gonna do outside of sports? But make sure you get a degree, make sure you get a job, and it's like, well, now that
What does that mean? Right?
yeah, exactly, right? Now that I'm in my mid-20s, now my vision for my life and where I want to go is completely different. But let's say if I would have had this vision, somebody would have put that spark in my mind when I was 13, 14 years old. What does my trajectory look like later on in life? You know what I mean?
You never saw that when you were in college?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't happen until I got out of college and I had to explore different avenues of what do I want my life to look like outside of sports now, right? I mean, shout out to Vic too. I don't think I would be in this position without Vic. And then it went from Vic, and then it went from Mark. Then the years that went on, Mark just put like little seeds in my brain. It's like going back to the
no, bro. Let's be honest. There weren't seeds, bro. Those were tough conversations that we had to have.
No, tough conversations.
It's hard to till rough earth.
Yeah,
you got to till the dry rough earth.
Yeah, and I think
not seeds.
And I think going back to the these are glaring signs.
There's some plants, there's some trees that I planted.
Like so, for the folks that are watching at home, like D'Angelo's like my little brother, and so is Vic. I am ridiculously tough on these two. I'm really tough on D'Angelo because of the fact is I spend a lot of time with him, but even with Vic, I'm tough on Vic. And the reason being is because of the fact is, honestly, when it comes to this industry and everything else, because of the fact that I've given my heart and everything to it, and you want to be a part of it, like, look, bro, I'm going to help you, but I'm like, I always believe that people are great, but I'm going to challenge you to see exactly how great you really are.
Yeah. And I wish I would have had that when I was 13 or 14, right? I spent some time around Mark's nephews and nieces, and bro, those shout out to them, bro. Those kids are on it, bro. I'm like, and I just sit and I listen to the conversations that they have, and I'm just like, bro, if I would have had somebody that around me at those fundamental stages in my life, bro, I don't know where.
D'Angelo,
go ahead.
You didn't have a guidance counselor at your school that could have helped fill in that? I'm trying to see how does community tie in to help,
right,
or school or whatever the case might be to help facilitate that. If let's say parents didn't do that, let's say big brothers like your uncles or aunties or whatever didn't do that, right? Because that's what I mean by community, right?
Shout outs to all the TVs that raised us.
Right.
No, there we go.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, in the Deep South, right? That wasn't
that. I didn't have nobody else like.
Well, about to say in the Deep South, you either had a parent that had a little bit of knowledge that had been through it or whatever, or you had again Charles. I'm not going to tell his story too much for him, right? But he got an investment from his folks, and it was passed down to him, right? And they had investment groups, and even in his time when he had his investment groups, and they were doing through the .com thing, right? They were still quiet about it, right? Because it wasn't like you wasn't running off at the mouth and stuff. And it's like it's one of those things where it's like growing up. I grew up in New Orleans, right? I had smart, intelligent, college educated, what I assume progressive parents, right? They told me about all kinds of different things, but they weren't tech, and they didn't understand about tech, right? They didn't have they didn't have any frame of reference of that, right? There were no like startups in New Orleans. There weren't even people really programming in New Orleans, right? It was literally okay, bro, you gonna be a musician, or you gonna go be something else with a degree, and more than likely you're gonna leave New Orleans unless you want to stay here and be a musician or run a restaurant.
Wow.
And that's
New
your
Orleans
game.
and the musicians.
We're gonna have to, guys. I'm sorry. I know that we went like very long time, but we're gonna have to probably bring in Uncle Charles into this because I really want to know what his thought process is. So we may have to actually make this a part 2 and also tie in the real estate conversation in next week.
Yeah, Tunde, be ready.
Oh wow. Oh, he's really trying to come for your head next week. Okay. Hey, look, he said be ready next week.
I see what time you're on.
You over here like
I see what time he's on.
You see him wearing the
I see what time he's on. It's all good.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Listen, but no, like, because I still want you guys to go out and enjoy your evenings. But yeah, this is a conversation that has to be continued for part 2.
Straight up.
And I think that honestly, like, I think the biggest part is like moving forward, I want us to take the gloves off of the conversation. And like, if it's something in which that we can challenge ourselves to be better at as a community or as a culture or whatever it is, because honestly, like I said, if I think the culture has had its fair share of participation trophies. Like, we've had our fair share of participation trophies while taking L's. I think that those days are over. I think the guy who wrote the Boondog said our moral equity has run out or is running out. I think it's now run out. Like, we're in a place now where it's like, people look at the history as it pertains to the things in which that we've gone through as a community, and honestly, real talk, they don't care anymore. They don't care about that story anymore. Especially like, they're focused on like what they've got in front of them. So I definitely want us to continue this conversation because I think that we would be remiss to not have Uncle Charles involved in this. And out of respect for Uncle Charles, I know that he's going through something right now, but we would love to have him back next week so that way we can continue this conversation. What do you guys think about that?
I'm with it.
I like it. I'm very curious what the viewers think about this, and
I am too.
inputs and their, their thought process, right? Because we don't have all the answers, right? And
We
I
don't.
think what we're trying to
We're giving our opinions as it
what is
pertains
this-
to what our scopes look like, what our viewpoint scope looks like.
our lands, yeah, for sure.
I would love to hear people's opinion about how they're going to change their family's trajectory. Because I do think a lot of us are products of like Prentice said, the last 10, 20 to 30 years. And there's a lot of unbandaging. There's a lot of healing that has to happen. I'm not saying let's not sulk on it. Let's not be over dramatic about it, right? But I think there's a lot of things that we have to unwrap and also reform and burn it to the ground, essentially, right? And rebuild it back up. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts about how we can go about doing that as well.
Yeah. Well, I say let's have it next week because I definitely want to get into that whole generational conversation too, Tunde, where we talk about the generalizations of the generations and do those things actually still stick. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time because this was a long one. We definitely discussed a lot, and like I said, I didn't want to take everything off of the bone. I wanted us to leave some of it on for Uncle Charles, so that way he can have some of the turkey on his plate. But thank you guys. I appreciate you for engaging in this conversation. And
Next
for those
week,
of you that are
D'Angelo.
watching,
I'm gonna be ready.
Okay.
okay, make sure you're here on time. All right. So,
Oh wow.
all right, y'all. Until next time, we are the group chat. We will catch you guys in the next one. Be safe, be kind. We definitely want to hear your thoughts down below. So leave your comments in the comment section. We'll see you guys next week.